1817, Chapter 2, Robert, the migration pattern of rare birds. Alex was still out trying to impress the lords and ladies. No doubt he was talking me up and trying to gauge interest. He and father had made this huge list of potential matches for me. He was making notes on every single one that seemed promising. If something about a lady displeased him, he knocked her name off the list. Ooh, she gave me the eye. No good for Robert. She'll only encourage his wayward rebellion. Slowly but surely, Alexander would cross every name off that list until he was totally satisfied. Father said that as long as my match was a girl from the list, he didn't particularly have a care for which one I was walking the aisle with in a few years. I was the second heir, after all. Alexander's wife would be a much more important matter, if they ever got back to that. So far, my older brother artfully dodged the subject, saying his severely broken heart. "Robert, that lady thought you were fetching. Why did you flee her like that?" Collin looked at me in his unapologetically orange jacket. I feel like a disease that's catching. I throw myself back onto the bed. I didn't want to get up either. I would have been over the moon that all these lovely ladies were vying for my attention, but I didn't feel like playing the game. The game wasn't a game to my father, but a game to me because it didn't feel real. It wasn't a game for anyone else involved either. A game. That's the only way I could bear to think of the courtship process. Otherwise, it would crush me with its depressing, oppressive importance. You can't have her. You knew this all along. She's not yours. You best give up now, because you'll never have her. I don't want anyone else. Only Wren. I'll prove absolutely everyone wrong about us. Collin sat next to me on the bed. You have brilliant chances here. You know how girls our age are simply mad for a dashing young poet. I'm hardly a fledgling poet. I wish he'd let it go for 2 minutes. I almost wish I never let him know that I wanted to be a great poet. But Collin was too good a friend to ever forget my dream. You're 16. You have time. He failed to see the irony in that statement. It doesn't bloody well feel like it, I grumbled, no longer in the mood for his cheer. Some people have arranged marriages set before they're even born. If you follow Alexander around and act a certain way, you can likely influence the outcome. You're not completely condemned yet, Collin sensibly pointed out. Lovely way of putting it into perspective, Call. Thank you oh so much. Or sulk in your room for the rest of the night over circumstances that will affect your life until death do you part. He shot right back at me. Just then a sudden idea struck me from nowhere traceable, a whim I must follow. Collin, instead of going to the dance, I wish to go to the marketplace. Now? His disbelief was so strong it radiated in the air. Some of the stores are still open. I must get something for my little dove. Goodness, Robert, you're completely hopeless. Though he shook his head at me, he'd go with me since I had summoned him here in the first place. He sighed. Let me get my sovereigns. Later that night, I held the silver locket up in my hand. It shone with such brilliance in the candlelight, I felt almost hypnotized by it. It was a realistic little moon, with craters carved carefully upon it. Wren had once asked me for the moon. As impossible as it seemed, I would fulfill this request. I wonder what she'd think of that. I hope that she'd just adore it. I also had the drawing Harold did of Wren. It was genius. He even got her ringlets right. Those eyes were unmistakably my Wren's. A well-known miniatures artist lived in that very town by the sea. My plan was to take this drawing of Harold's and this locket down to the painter's cottage tomorrow morning and spend my remaining sovereigns to have him make 2 miniatures for the locket. One of Wren using Harold's drawing as a reference, and the other of me as I was then. We'd look at one another and be together in the locket, even if the rest of the world denied us any other union. When Alexander came into the room, I was transfixed by the locket. It was late, well after dinner time. Collin and I had skipped the dance to walk the beaches after I found my perfect treasure at the market. Quickly I snapped it up in my hand and buried my prize in my trousers pocket. If Alex saw, he didn't comment on my concealment of the locket. Instead, he said, Robert, you didn't come to dinner or the dance tonight. Why was that? His tone indicating that he wasn't annoyed, but rather curious. I opted not to answer right away to see what he would come up with on his own. I always found Alexander's speculations of my life entertaining, because they were usually far from true. He made me out to be a lot more interesting than I actually was. He often gave me far too much credit for mischief, though I appreciated his use of imagination. I saw your schoolmate Collin here. He was with you earlier, before you left the lobby. So he knew more than he was originally letting on. Alex was no fool, and I wasn't going to treat him like one. Where'd you run off to? We went into town and then took a stroll on the beach. No lies there. I had to be honest with him, or it would make things worse. Robert, I know you don't want to be here, and I don't blame you. The game of courtship is difficult for everyone involved, he said, sounding surprisingly more sympathetic than I thought he'd be. Perhaps Collin was right, and I could sway Alex to seeing things my way. You're apathetic and attempting resistance because you already found someone yourself. I sat up on the bed, which I had been reclining on, and stared at him wide-eyed, caught. I thought I was doing a pretty good job hiding my affinity for Ren, but Alex, knowing me better than most, easily saw through me. Involuntarily, I confirmed his suspicions from the red that came burning up on my cheeks. Look, I can help you, Robert. I'll just tell Father that I didn't think any of these girls suited you. I can buy you some time, but it's possible that if I do that, Father might pick your bride himself, he warned. Alex seemed concerned when I said nothing to that. I don't care if you're seeing another boy from your school or if it's a girl from the village. I won't tell Father. Just please be careful. He knew my habits and was aware that my affairs could have extremely dire consequences. He wasn't wrong in this case, but it didn't sound like he was thinking specifically of Ren. Her secret was still safe. Let him believe it was someone else, anyone else. Why would you help me? Won't Father get angry with you if he finds out? Because I don't agree with Father's idea of trying to force you to behave by making you get engaged to one of his friend's daughters. It will do nothing to temper you. You'll just fall in love with someone else, and knowing you, it will be anyone but someone Father approves of. He shook his head, his long black ponytail doing a comical swish. That was the first time that I had ever heard him dismiss Father's opinion. Alexander understood me far better than I first thought. I smiled in realization. I am rather contrary like that, aren't I? I couldn't help but laugh. There are worse things to be, Alexander agreed and continued. Father shouldn't try to control you so much. I think you do much better in a marriage where you choose the girl, if you even want to marry at all. Do you truly believe that? I asked hopefully. Perhaps I hadn't given Alex enough credit after all. Yes, though Father doesn't trust you, I don't think you're a complete fool. You know what you want, and you've never let convention stop you. There's something admirable in that, as dangerous as it can be, he replied thoughtfully. What's really making you change your mind? I asked, wondering what was causing him to side with me over Father, an alliance which wouldn't be to his advantage. 16 is far too young to worry about marriage for anyone. I think you should at least finish university before you worry about such a serious thing. Enjoy your time at Lockwood with your friends. Be a boy while you can, for the world will want you to be a man before you know it. Don't hasten into adulthood. It's nothing like you think it is. He was trying to protect me from what happened to him. Essentially, Alex grew up before his time, since Father relied heavily upon him to help with the house, Harold, and me. He grew up to replace our eccentric uncle, his namesake, who had died when Alex was little, before I was born. Now that he was a full-grown man, Father treated Alex much more like a brother than a son. This was a major part of the reason why Alex was so devastated when Father didn't approve of his courting Molly Dorset. I thought that Miss Dorset may have been a huge motivator for Alex's change of heart. Under all that good Christian faith and straight-faced honesty, my brother carefully cradled a romantic's heart. That's why he wouldn't let me be gutted by the marriage game against my own wishes. It went against his sense of truth. 16 is too young, nor is 17 much better, I agreed, thinking of my poor Wren given away to a man twice her age, just days after her own 17th birthday. But that gross injustice we could still remedy. I'd work to free her of Finch's talons somehow. I was determined, for I had promised her I would do so. Wren, this is the last time I will leave you alone with him. You deserve better. I'll give you something so much better. By all the beating hearts of the rebel poets, I do solemnly swear, my darling, you shall soon be free.